Emotions boiled over at an otherwise peaceful pro-gun rights rally outside Seattle City Hall today as 3 men were taken into custody. Their arrest came in the middle of the rally and march sponsored by Patriot Prayer and the Washington 3%, both pro-Trump organizations. But as KIRO 7's Deborah Horn reports tonight, their supporters were far outnumbered by counter-protesters.
The strategy Seattle police usually use when there are protesters and counter-protesters is to keep them apart, and they managed to achieve that today. Still, that did not keep the tension from reaching a fevered pitch.
All day, all night, shut down the alt-right!
To be sure, there were plenty of jeers and loud siren sounds meant to drown out the gun rights rally sponsored by Patriot Prayer and the Washington 3%. But for the most part, the fiery speeches went on as planned.
We have become absolute zombies in this culture. Concerned about celebrities, concerned about the car that you drive and the money. We need to get, our celebrities need to be those who are fighting a tyrannical government.
Across the street, their size was dwarfed by the huge number of counter-protesters.
These people are anti everything that unions and working people stand for. So yeah, we're here to be loud and make a presence.
Still, all remained peaceful until this. One man was taken into custody. Seattle bicycle officers moved in, and that seemed to upset counter-protester Jamal X.
Back for what? That's what we're talking about!
And soon he too was in custody. Once the speeches were over, the gun rights groups marched around City Hall. It was the closest Seattle police allowed them to get to the much larger group of counter-protesters. Then they turned around and headed back up James to continue their march.
USA! USA! USA!
All 3 men were arrested for assault, and we expect that they will make their first court appearance sometime Monday. Reporting in downtown Seattle, Deborah Horn, KIRO 7 News.
KOMO News starts right now.
All day, shut down the alt-right. USA! USA! USA!
Happening right now, dueling protests in downtown Seattle. At this hour, everything is wrapping up. Police keeping the right-wing Proud Boys group and the left-wing counter-protesters separated since these rallies began. We have live team coverage tonight covering both sides of this. We start with KOMO's Mitch Pittman, live now at City Hall. Mitch?
Yeah, Molly, you can still see a really big police presence behind me here, though it is quieter now than it has been since noon as these two groups are finally splitting up, but very slowly. The Liberty or Death rally was held in the plaza at City Hall. It was organized by the Patriot Prayer group, which has put on similar rallies in the past, and the 3% Washington group, named after what members believe to be the percentage of Americans who fought in the Revolutionary War. They said it was a rally against political violence on the left, that there were dozens upon dozens of assault-style rifles and handguns within the group on the right as well. The entire time, the counter-protest group, which was 3 to 4 times larger, was heard chanting from across the street. We first want to play for you a little of one of the speeches, then you'll hear the response from one of the organizers when I asked him about using language like our time to rise, taking back our country, and wipe them from existence.
Let us dominate once again and destroy these communists once and for all. No more gun control, no more political correctness, no more safe spaces, no more acceptance of ludicrous ideals. They want to fight? Well, let's fight!
When they say things like, it's our time to rise up, what does that mean for folks?
No, just the conservatives in the center of the country, outside of the coast, have been the silent majority for a while, and it's our time to have a voice and stop being silent.
Now, we wanted to play that for you to let you know what's being said at these events. Now, after there was a relatively brief march around the area, which caused some traffic issues, but as you can see now, it's letting up, and things have remained much more peaceful than they were in Portland as these two groups head back to their cars and leave the city. Molly?
Yeah, glad to see there weren't bigger problems. Mitch, thank you. Of course, Seattle police playing a big role in keeping both sides safe. KOMO's Tammy Mutasa joins us now with that side of the story. Tammy.
Molly, I tell you, police were not messing around, and right now their challenge is still keeping both groups separated. You can see right here over my shoulder, police officers have been on every corner on 4th Avenue trying to stop clashes between the Proud Boys and counter demonstrators. Now, police had crowd control on lockdown. They wasted no time arresting at least 2 counter protesters. The counter demonstrators outnumbered and drowned out the Proud Boys from across the street. Both sides were separated by metal barriers along 4th Avenue, but police worked hard to keep each side from crossing to the opposing side, especially when the Proud Boys started marching around City Hall. Counter-protesters say they're fighting against intolerance. They're also remembering those lost to far-right violence, like anti-fascist activist Heather Heyer, who was killed in Charlottesville last August while she was protesting a white nationalist rally.
We're for self-defense. If somebody is being violent, then I hope I have the skill to be violent back to defend myself. But this movement and what we stand for is not violence. We don't stand for laying back and letting ourselves be attacked and exterminated.
Back out here live, you can see a major police presence still out here blocking 4th Avenue to keep protesters from clashing with the ralliers. Now, some protesters say they thought the police presence was a little bit too strong, but officers telling us they just can't take any chances. Molly?
And turning to our other big story tonight.
But really not much violence to speak of. We do know from SPD 3 adult males were arrested for assault here. We do not know what side they were. We did see at least one of those arrests happen on the corner over there within the group of counter-protesters. So that's the good news. There was some concern that those folks would come together and that there would be violence, but police kept them separated by the street through the day. Everybody got to have their say to the folks that agreed with them, really, as they were separated. Here's those sound bites.
There's nothing I can ever say that is right. I can say peace and love and I'm a Nazi. It doesn't matter.
Anytime like extreme racist and right-wing groups try to organize in our city, we need to show them they're not welcome, and we don't want them to have a public presence.
And the Patriot Prayer side did march. Cops on bicycles kept them corralled within a few blocks of here. The other counter-protesters were following them, but again, police kept them separated. They did come close together about a block from here, but there was a line of police officers keeping them separated. So this really resolved relatively peacefully. They broke up about an hour ago. Buses came and picked up some of those protesters, and everybody headed home. So again, we know 3 adult males arrested for assault today. SPD says they're going to be monitoring the situation overnight, but really, there's nobody left out here right now. So we will send it back to you. For now, live in Seattle, I'm Michael Crow, King 5 News.
All right, thank you, Michael.